I can't compare this fairly, I suppose, to my 500 Bullet. The 500 Bullet would run rings round it in the torque stakes and a little bit more top end. But this is very smooth. Although my Bullet isn't too bad considering. These have got about 20 brake horsepower. I don't know what the weight is. It is decently torquey. My usual test is how low will it pull in speed terms, top gear, which is 5th. And it will do it at 30. Doesn't rocket forward at that, of course. It's perhaps best at 35. Once you're about 35 in top, you just leave it there. The other test I did with an Interceptor was up a slight incline, and I got that down to 28. Same incline, this was 30, and still pulled away. Not exactly labouring, but yeah, you would normally knock it down at least 1. It was just on F-trip when I picked it up, and I've put about 1.5 gallons in. I'd say it's about 2 gallons from F-trip coming on to a full tank, which might equate to what some people are saying, that it comes on a little bit too early. All things considered, it should do sort of like 80 to the gallon at least, so it's a fair range. The gear change, for those who don't know, that's a heel and toe. So to go up the ratios, you use the heel bit. By just tapping virtually, it seems like you move it about 1/2 inch and it goes into the next gear with your heel down. The position of this one and the angle of it is, you can't get your foot underneath the lever. So it all has to be done via the heel to go up the ratios. To go down, you push down as you would normally with that lever there. There's a bit more travel though, and I'm only wearing walking boots at the moment, and the soles are a bit thin. I'm thinking maybe it wouldn't seem to travel as far to go back down the gearbox if you were wearing adventure boots. But if the adventure boots are new, it might restrict the movement of your foot where you're a bit strained perhaps. I'll try that later. Gearbox wise, as I've already been told, it was a nice one, and it is. It is the best gearbox on any Royal Enfield single I've ridden, including all my own. I've already said it's a torquey motor, and that's good. In the real world, that's good. But what will it do at the top end? I can tell you, on the clock, with me on it, and I'm no skinny runt by any means these days, 69 on the clock, top end, 5th gear. Rather like my GT, 5th feels more of an overdrive than a 5th gear. You might say that's one and the same. Handling wise, yeah, a bit slow in the corners. Again, you'd expect it in the style of bike, but plenty of ground clearance. Just down the road down there, and round the corner, just out of sight, there's a almost hairpin bend, and it's about 1 in 5, maybe 1 in 4. 2nd gear, I dare say it was what, less than 10 mile an hour? No issues there. As good as the gearbox is though, the position of the lever in relation to the rather large foot peg means that your heel is always on the rear of the lever, and it is easy to go the wrong way, usually when you don't want to. I dare say the likes of Mr. Hitchcock's will come up with something slightly different, perhaps a slightly longer pedal front and rear, and in doing so hopefully the front will come up a little bit, giving you room to get your foot under it. It's a lovely late summer evening. We're off to the South Midlands branch of the Royal Enfield Owners Club at Studley. I'm taking the Meteor. I noticed that the clock, the actual time clock on the Speedo is the right time, but the one on the gizmo for the Google Maps findy thing, that's about nearly 15 minutes out. I would presume that that syncs with your phone once you Bluetooth it to it. but I ain't interested in that. You can probably hear she's a quiet bike, wind noise wise. I'm not sure if this was the one they had which had the screen on some time back, can't remember, but she's nice. But what I would say about the gearbox itself, the whole shebang of the gearbox, the operation and everything, get used to it a bit before you comment on it really. Love the heel change, but going back down the box is awkward. I've got me adventure boots on now, me crappy RST ones. They've got very thick soles. I suppose it is a little better, but they're still quite stiff, so yeah, it needs the lever just bending up, if you like, so it's proper forward control sort of style. Well, in part, the lever anyway, not the position. The suspension is lovely. It's supple without being too floaty and too wallowy. That was me trying to go for the gear change at the front lever. Right, third, fourth, not, that's, I'm revving it out now, well, attempting to. That's fifth, we're in fifth now, 60 mile an hour, and it's planted. Obviously you feel wind on your chest, you are bolt upright more or less. Right, what's this joker going to do? That's nice of him, isn't it? Use the slip road, it'd been alright. So, it's a shame we ain't got a rev counter. It doesn't feel that stretched at 60. It's, I would say, although the roads are crap, I would say that the suspension, at least with this touring seat, is just on the ever so slightly firm side. I'm guessing at this speed, and this is a complete guess, I'm going on the note of the engine, I'm going to say at 60 it's doing around about 4.5 to 5,000 RPM. But that is obviously a complete guess based on the feel of my Himalayan, which has got more go, considering it hasn't got that much more horsepower, probably not that much more torque either. And they do say, you know, don't look at the figures all the time, they don't tell the whole story. Well, come on people, you've only got a half a engineering brain cell and mechanics, and you know, it does tell most of the story, but of course then you've got to throw in the weight, or the lack of it. It's a very low centre of gravity, but you do tend to sit on the bike rather than in it, as a cruiser would, you would normally expect to sit in the bike, not on it. It's funny, like now at 50, it feels like you could do with a 6th gear. But I've read it's got a balancer shaft, and that certainly does a job. Himalayans, it just tends to move it right to the top end, and it's buzzy then, but this one seems to be doing the job throughout the rev range of the engine. Right, here you go with the brakes. Down one. Lovely. Nice. It feels like the front suspension is about right, and maybe the rear's a fraction firm, but yeah, not too bad. Nothing worth messing with really. The gears, you've got to get a bit used to it if you're not used to this heel and toe, because occasionally like change gear then you think, oh, go to the front, no, use the rear. Feels a bit like my Panigale gearbox going up the gears with the heel, that being fitted with a quick shifter. It's got that sort of like short throw. Now there you go, there's a classic case of me catching the lever, and somebody told me about that recently, and it's true. It's like you've got to consciously keep your foot away, and it's a bit unnatural. You want it to just rest out the way. Again, you probably get used to it, but so I've got my foot on the edge of that pedal now, so yeah, it is comfortable, mega comfortable really. Arms feel great just off the straight locked position. Plenty of control, of course, the bars. On reflection, I should have put fancy petrol in, not E10, because what I've been reading, and I have been using some of that on the 1024 run. I was using a lot of the fancy super unleaded, as it were, you know, like V-Power and that. You know, a lot of people say, certainly in older machines, yeah, it'll run of course, but it's less responsive and runs a bit rougher. Conversely, you use the fancy stuff and they tend to run a bit smoother. I should have done that just to, but there's no way it's this rough. It'd be nice to see the difference. When I put a 1.5 gallon in, it was all but one segment of a full tank. It's gone down one segment in something like 20 miles. Well, that's third gear. It's very responsive. And a lot of people say, oh, you know, somebody said a Himalayan, oh, it's underpowered. No, it's not. It is what it is. You can read the figures, 20 brake horsepower, or 24 in the case of Himalayan, and the torque values and all that, and when it comes in and where it peters off, you can read all that, and that with a little bit of knowledge, that does tell you a lot. I don't care what anybody tells you. This is no surprise. It hasn't got as much go as my Bullet 500, but again, it's not really a fair comparison, I suppose, except that engine's like 10-year-old design. I love that changing to a higher gear with the heel. That's neat, that is. As long as you do it when you want it. Nice. We're doing well, just shut off a bit, we're doing 35, fifth gear. Keeps coming up eco, whatever that means. Does that mean I'm riding economically being in fifth early, or does that mean I have to ride more economically? Well, I can't really do that. Excellent for B roads and country lanes and that. It's a bit weird. I suppose really, I've said it's not my cup of tea in the style stage, because it's neither one nor the other to me. But it's it swings nicely. Swings nicely. A speed bump coming here. Let's see. Yeah, no pain at all. No pain at all. Yeah. That's very nice. Mirrors are good, in a good position. I see a bit of my shoulders, but I can see plenty of road. Come on, Volvo, get the lead out. We've got a bit of 70 mile an hour in a bit, but I think most of it's slightly uphill and then downhill, so won't be realistic. And I'm not going to absolutely thrash it within an inch of its life downhill. Very tractable. I was in third, then it never felt like it. Felt I was in a higher gear. Ah, driving like a taxi and a bus. Brake then indicate. Well done. Second gear. 11 mile an hour, something like that. Third, 35. 45 into fourth. And just stick it into fifth, 50 mile an hour. The only thing it's really missing, that the others have a little bit of, is the top end, the more comfortable top end. So yes, you can sit on the motorway, because I've done it. with a Himalayan at 70. Perhaps it's not considered to be particularly kind. All my Enfields, and you know this when you buy them, you've only got to look at the figures, they lack that overtake ability. You've really got to weigh it up. They have got a little bit more than this, you know, they've got a good, well, they've certainly got 10 mile an hour on this at the top end. It's a relaxing ride. On that score, it's exactly the same as my Bullet, although this is smoother. Quieter, yeah, the engine's less tappety. Personally, I wouldn't have had the engine bars on. Although, having said that, you know, if you're cruising along on a reasonably fast, say, A road, 60 mile an hour, have some extra foot pegs up there that fold, put your feet up there, that gets you away from the gear lever. If you want a bike that's, well, yeah, as manageable as a 125 more or less, has got more go and isn't intimidating, I'm sure it would carry 2 people, as long as you're a bit skinny, and I ain't. I'm sure it would carry 2 people 55 mile an hour or so all day. You would be changing down a gearbox on some climbs, but for the most part it's happy just pottering along, which really is probably what it's all about. Love the colour. In shade it doesn't look very nice, but you get it in the sun and it sort of glints and it changes from a browny red to a, I don't know, sort of a crimson. Right, where's that gear lever gone? I think the other reason, of course, although, there we go first, I think the other reason, of course, even compared to my Bullet, it probably is a little bit further forward than I've been used to for some years. There we go, going round there all right. Onto the Bromsgrove Highway, and as you can see, I've got that quite way over, and nothing grounded out the foot pegs, nothing. So again, from that point of view, it's not a cruiser, it's a laid back classic. Right, that we're going up this hill now. I've got it on the stop, we're doing 60. It is accelerating though, but not very fast, so that's about 62. It's creeping. Yeah, about 63. I'll shut off a bit now. Going down this hill. I'm just maintaining 62.3, not pushing it. Could do with a flat bit of road, give it a true reading. I suppose in short it's nippy enough up to about 55, 60. Right, just start to climb again. I've got it right against the stop. Well, it's maintaining 62. Just. It's certainly a bad little bike. It's things like this is a concern when you pull over to this lane to let him in. Yeah, I could have shut off a bit, I suppose. And of course, there's nothing about, but I've got nothing left to give. 60 mile an hour. It's not the shallowest of hills, but it's certainly not the steepest. 4th gear. See, caught that bloody lever again before I was ready. Anyway, it's reasonably flat there, 62 and accelerating. That gearbox, if you get it right with the lever, it certainly works well. It's just a bit too close to your foot all the time. Right, 3rd gear, 40, nip it into 5th now, up this hill, I don't know, how much throttle, half throttle, something like that. This engine is very familiar in feel, for the most part, to a Himalayan engine, even though it looks sort of like half an Interceptor engine, certainly the bottom end. The difference being is that when you do get the revs up on a Himalayan's engine, it does get buzzy. Right, see what it's like with some gentle twisties. It's It's lovely. Although this is a good road surface. Be nice to take it to work, but I won't have time for that. Wrong gear. Fifth. I think I nudged it back into fifth, I don't know. It did alright though, didn't it? Third this time. So, yeah, look, you see how I just caught it then. Just caught it back into fourth. Right folks, let's test the headlight, and it looks pretty decent to me. Make sure I know where the main beam is so I don't blind that bloke. Yeah, okay. Well, they're not bad. It's not it's almost like it's a bit too, seems a bit too high. It's funny, the dip seems about right, maybe a smidgen low, but main beam seems a bit high. Right, we're in third. Go on the Bromsgrove Highway. Fourth. Ah, talky down there. 50 into top. Fifth gear. Let's see what the handling is like for one final time. This is a bit of a killer. It's quite steep at this point of the highway, or getting onto it I should say. Just got enough poke and slip road to get behind him without having to shut off. Sorry, in front of him, without having to shut off and lose all my momentum. 52. It is accelerating slowly. Yeah, we are in top. Right, that's 60. We are going downhill now. 66, 69, 70. Of course it is downhill, I am shutting off, but it's reasonably flat here, but we've got to turn off shortly. Drop down to about 67 there. Right, more or less flat there. Slight climb. I'm hard against the stop. We're doing 66. 65. So yeah, I would like 10 mile an hour more, 15 mile an hour more, something like the other three really. Right, very last handling test for this evening. A bit bumpy here. It's probably a better test. Down to third, trying to keep away from that lever. Nice. I'll leave it in third. Very pleasant, very stable. This is I've done it again with the lever. So yeah, that's my biggest niggle with the bike, and shame we've got roadworks. Yeah, that lever and foot peg being cluttered, that's the word, cluttered, is my biggest dislike, I think. Even the seat don't feel as hard now, I've ridden it a bit.